Hi, everybody. This is Tracy Malone, and today we are going to talk about why codependents struggle with relationships. I have a very special guest I'll introduce in a minute, but I had questions. Um, because we were with a narcissist, does that necessarily mean that we're stamped with codependency? I never liked the relationship and I never liked the connection there. I totally relate to codependency, but I personally don't think that you are by default codependent. And my other question is codependency like a life sentence? Can we actually heal from it? And how do we heal? Because I know a lot of people that never did, right? My guest today is Jack Blackwell, and he is from the Healing Family Trauma here in Boulder, Colorado. And last month, he gave a 2-hour workshop to my support group on codependency. He has support. They're not support groups like mine that are free and people come to. This is a group that he has that he teaches codependency and works with the people in the group. And so I think he's an expert. He wouldn't say he is, but I do think that he is. And he's got a lot of information with us to share with us today. So without any further ado, let's welcome Jack.
It's great to be on the call with you, and I appreciate your offer.
Yeah,
Much appreciated.
You came and you helped my support group by teaching us a codependency class, a lesson that I don't know how many people we brought, but everybody is so happy about learning this that I knew that we needed to bring you in to educate the rest of the world outside our Boulder bubble.
Yeah, well, happy to share what I've learned about my own journey with healing codependency, and the group that I lead. And really, I'm an expert. My expertise is really in family systems and healing codependency. These are two of the things that have been the most important in my life. So.
And I know that like codependency has a personal attachment to you. Would you be willing to share some of that story so people can get some background as to that you're just not some guy that read a book and now we're going to teach it, but that you have actually lived it?
Sure. Yeah. I probably consider myself a classic person, and I don't like calling someone a codependent. I actually prefer codependent patterns. I feel like it's a survival strategy adopted in childhood. And I'm probably a classic person. I had to take care of my mother. I was sort of the little husband in the family. I had to be nice. I had to not make any waves. I was not allowed to be angry. I was the only child in the household, and she even went through a 3-year depression from about the age when I was about 15 until I was about 18. And so I would, when she'd have migraines, I would drive her to the hospital. I would do the shopping. And in essence, what I had to do was I had to give up all of my own needs to meet her needs. And I think that catapulted me into codependent patterns throughout my life. To where I would always get into relationships. And what I found myself doing over and over again was self-betraying, was not speaking my truth, was always worrying about her needs or her emotions. And I didn't even know like my own pleasure, my own joy, and what I wanted. And really began healing a lot of that in the 40s. Now being 52, I've got most of that behind me. And my life is better than it's ever been. I'm more in integrity with myself. I have much more self-respect, and I'm speaking my truth almost all the time, and I'm still loved and accepted, right? That's to me, the big crux of it. That's been my journey about it.
Wow. Well, thank you. I mean, you pretty much sort of listed a lot of the symptoms that codependents have. I mean, you're saying this is what happened to me. And it truly is. For me, I had no boundaries too. I had a alcoholic mom, narcissistic, And, there's lots of people pleasing in me. There's certainly codependency. There's trying to fix the world. I guess I'm doing that now. I'm not sure that's the same thing though, but I was self-sacrificing and I rescued people, even if they didn't need rescuing. Those are all other symptoms or signs of codependency, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll add one thing you said there because it's a beautiful nuance that you offered. To me, when we heal the patterns of codependency, we have an amazing gift and amazing gifts to offer the world. We're great listeners. We can adapt in relationships and shift when things are off. Super easy. We are the people that can come to the world and are the healers. We're the psychotherapists, we're the nursing staff, and all of that. So there are tremendous gifts when we heal what I term the need to do these things. When we get past the need to do them, which is kind of the compulsion based on the childhood wounds, and get to, oh, I don't need to do it, but this is a gift I can offer the world. So I just want to thread that tangent in there because so often it's labeled so negatively.
I know.
Yeah.
I hate the correlation between you were with a narcissist, so you're a codependent. It's like, I want a prize. And you're like, not everyone has codependency. That was with them. I don't like it being always married together. I believe there is a correlation.
Yeah.
And certainly narcissists pick up on someone who is codependent because you're a giver and they're a taker. It's a good match. So they pick that up. So I think the odds are probably higher that they're targeting us. But I don't think it's always the case. I think there are healthy people that are just people pleasers and good deed doers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they also fall into that. So I just don't like attaching them together as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's another big reason why I think codependents have a tendency to be attracted to narcissists. And it's because codependents, and maybe in a minute I'll go into sort of my definition of codependency in case that helps some people.
Mm-hmm.
But codependents lack a sense of self in a fundamental way. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And narcissists have nothing but a sense of self. And I think that's one of the reasons why codependents can be attracted to narcissists, because that strength of a narcissist in their sense of self is very alluring when we had to give up our sense of self in childhood.
This is so interesting that you said that. I was coming home from a new workshop last night with a friend from my support group, and we were talking about our marriages, and I have had two, and I told her about how both of my husbands, I looked at as sort of like, that's what I want to be. I was like, they were like, I want to grow up and be my first husband. He was my boss at the time. And I was like, I want to be the boss, and I was attracted to that wholeness that I didn't have, but I didn't have the words for it last night, but that's exactly what those were, was looking for the self, but living through vicariously them, right?
Yeah, narcissists have a lot of strength. They have a lot of authority. They have a lot of just chutzpah in their selfness.
Right.
And it's certainly wound-based.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For them.
So this is a perfect generation lead thing into here. If you would tell us your definition of codependency, because I loved it when you shared it with our group.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. So Tracy, my definition of codependency is a wound. It's a wound of self-betrayal. It's a wound of self-betrayal. Codependents, what I find very, very consistently, codependents had to give up their sense of self, who they were, and their own personal needs to meet the needs of either mom or dad or the family system, right? So they learn to adapt to the family system. They take care of mom, they take care of dad, they're the peacemakers. But in doing all of this, they give up their authentic selves to make sure, and the basic premise behind that is to ensure that their survival and safety needs get met as well as possible. So that's why I call it a wound of self-betrayal. It's not intentional. It's an intelligent survival strategy for the kid, but then we carry those same strategies into our adult relationships.
Do most codependents have some sort of childhood wound?
Yeah, I would say 99 to 100%.
Wow.
The basic wound of codependency for me, it's not about the relationship that we have either with an alcoholic or whatever now. While that's relevant, I feel like that's a symptom. And that the original wound and the healing work needs to happen around childhood.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important because so often we're, victims who find out they've been with someone abusive, or seeing patterns that they've had it their whole life, take on, I've got to heal because I just broke up with my husband, instead of, oh, how do I go deeper than that? And I think that's a journey on their path. They obviously have to learn about them. They have to learn about whatever else is going on with them. But then they have to take this decision to say, I really want to heal. I want to get better. Because having a relationship with someone who's codependent is very much a struggle for them. They are challenged by so many different things. Can you talk about the challenges of being in a relationship with someone in codependent?
Sure. Yeah, and we we talked a little bit prior to the call about this. Some of the patterns that I see in codependency. And one of the recent articles, and I'll read a snippet of what I wrote with some of the bullet points of the ways that codependents struggle in relationships, and why. So I'll read these off real quickly. So the main one, as I mentioned earlier, is codependents lose themselves. They lose themselves in relationships, and this is a huge one. Can't be understated. It's really, to me, it's the core of healing codependency is to actually rediscover who we are. Right?
So many times the victims and the people that I've talked to start off with, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yes.
It's always that.
Yes.
Because they lost themselves.
Yes, and it's because what's happened is they've gone back to the childhood template where they had to give up themselves to meet the needs of mom, dad, or the system.
Right. And
it's
then
just been projected onto their partner.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So they choose wounded people and they try to save them. Right? Another childhood survival strategy, it's a compulsion. Usually what they're really trying to do is they're trying to save their mothers or their fathers. Right? And if they can save them, then their own needs are met, then their own safety is met, then their own survival needs are met. So this pattern of trying to save lives in them, and now is being brought into their adult relationships.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I can 2 times you on that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been there. I've chosen the wounded birds, and wanted to save them. And what I really needed to do was heal my need to save my mother and my father. That's what I really needed to heal.
Yeah.
So it's super hard for people with codependent patterns to speak their truth. So it's maybe one of the biggest things.
And that means voicing how you actually feel, because if you actually do voice what you actually feel, you're afraid of being rejected, and you're afraid of people coming and judging you for your opinion, right?
Yeah. Rejected, abandoned, not loved, all of those devastating potentials. Yeah. Many times codependents don't know their truth, so they have to learn. Part of the healing is to actually learn our truth. Who are we? What do we stand for? What movie do we want to watch? What pizza topping do we want? Do we care about the thing that our partner just said? Was it really okay or not okay?
And be comfortable enough to actually have that conversation if it's not okay, because a normal codependent would shut down because of that fear, and that's where they can't speak their truth. So if someone's doing something that's just confusing them and not right, they can't speak up, they can't defend themselves.
And that fear is childhood based that you're talking about. And when we speak our truth, when we set a boundary, and we'll talk about this more later, but what we come up against is a true sensation in the body of life and death. You know, if I set this boundary, it feels absolutely terrifying and in a debilitating way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the healing of what must be faced are these sensations and emotions that come up in our bodies when we set a boundary, when we speak our truth, when we say no, you know,
Yeah.
express anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, a couple more. As we just mentioned, setting boundaries terrifies someone with codependent patterns. They avoid conflict. I was trying to be funny. I was like, they avoid conflict like cats avoiding water, right? It seems appropriate. Codependents are terrified to ask for their needs to be met. And again, it's not so much about our adult relationships. It's the terror of asking mom or dad for our needs to get met and either having it denied again, facing violence, being rejected. We don't want to be a burden because
Mm-hmm.
we're terrified of what, if we're a burden to the family, will mean.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one I wrote is they have deep wound-based impulses to control people and situations. Again, childhood survival strategy.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I made a note on one of the last ones. They avoid conflict like the cats in the water.
Yeah.
And isn't there a part of codependence that is also very much afraid of authority figures because of that same sort of avoiding conflict? So if you get pulled over by a cop and you're codependent, you're even more guilty inside, like you've done something wrong. The childhood wound of you being a bad person and, well, I don't know, eating 5 cookies like I would have done instead of 3. The guilt and I think, have you ever heard that part?
I haven't thought of it that way. Would you relate that to shame?
Yes,
Or simply a fear of authority, or do you have them intertwined?
I think they're totally intertwined. I
Mm-hmm.
used to get pulled over a lot.
That's another story. Brings up that curiosity. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have my license plate on the wall over there. When I was younger, it was Wild One.
Oh man.
I wasn't asking for trouble, was I? I don't know.
Not
I
at
did.
all. And you probably had a red Mustang or something like that.
I had a rally sport with a stripe down the middle. Yeah, it was cool. A good car.
Oh, we've come a long ways, haven't we?
It's true. I still drive a bright cherry red car, which is never good either. So sorry, I went off.
No, I think it's good. I want to tangent off something. I have a sense that one of the reasons why codependents have a ton of shame is because in morphing, what I call morphing into other people's worlds, like they morph themselves into other people's worlds, which again, childhood pattern, that they're hiding, it's like we as codependent patterns are hiding parts of ourselves. And it's almost like every part of ourselves that we hide becomes one more grain of shame that lives in our body. Because inherently to me, when we're hiding parts of ourselves, it's almost like we feel that there's something wrong with that part of ourselves. And to me, I have a sense that maybe builds up into a big pile of shame.
Yeah, layer cake of shame.
A layer cake, a double chocolate fudge shame cake.
They're going to say we're having way too much fun on this video.
Yeah.
All right. So I totally agree. I think that the shame is hooked into this. I mean, that's one of the things, that codependents struggle with. But how would you say it feels like? So if someone's like wondering, am I this? They could certainly go read some symptoms, and we'll have a link to your website. But I think, to me, to understand how it feels to be that, to experience anxiety and rejection and fears and things like that. How does a codependent feel when they're going into a relationship?
Hmm. When they're going into a relationship,
Or in a relationship where
they
they
may feel terrified. They may lose themselves. They may slowly lose their ability to speak their truth.
Mhm.
On the long term, I think codependents have a tendency to give so much that eventually they may become resentful
Mm.
of the other person because, in a deep, fundamental way, they're not getting their own needs met.
Mhm.
They're always taking care of this other person. And because they tend to choose narcissists, they're not getting anything back. So those are some of the thoughts that come to mind as you ask that question.
I think one of the things too that we know happens with victims of abuse is that they settle for crumbs. And I think
Mhm.
this is tied into the codependency. Like, we're shamed. We don't deserve the whole piece of double chocolate cake.
Yeah.
We don't deserve that. We don't deserve the whole. We settle for crumbs, and there's a shame factor in that. That, and also that speaking up and hearing our voice. I don't deserve more. I don't deserve to do this, but let me go, paint the house because I'm so nice and kind. We just don't feel like we're worthy.
Mhm. And that's a lot. That's a lot of personal work,
Mm-hmm.
right? To get to the point of recognizing our self-worth. One of the interesting things, like, you and I, as people with some of these patterns, the more we have a hard time maybe receiving love, or maybe we did at one time in our lives. And the truth is, the more love we receive, the more love we can give, the more love we have to give. We're not coming from an empty well where we get burned out or get resentful. So we're
Mm-hmm.
receiving love from people, from nature, from whatever it is, the support systems we have in place.
Right, right.
Um, let me go to kind of a brief piece, Tracy, around what I see as necessary to heal codependency.
That's
And
exactly.
there's two layers to this. So as I mentioned, to me, codependency, a wound of self-betrayal. We lose ourselves in relationships, and that's what we had to do in childhood to meet the needs of our system. So to me, healing is the direct opposite. It's knowing who we are, right? Discovering who we are, our authentic selves, and then acting in accordance with our truth. So our actions are in accordance with our truth, and speaking in accordance with our truth, that our words are in accordance with our truth. So that is the basic healing template, is to discover who we are and act it and speak it, which is really simple. And yet it's really, really, really challenging in a way. And I think we can go here, because I think this is the crux of the healing. It's that when we act in accordance with our truth, and when we speak in accordance with our truth, whether that's setting boundaries, speaking our truth, learning to say no, taking time for ourselves, asking for our needs to get met. All of these, when we do these, they touch the childhood terror. They touch the emotions and sensations that had to be suppressed when we were a little boy or a little girl, because we had to shut all of that down from the waist down. We had to shut it down because it was terrifying. Nobody was there to support us. We felt like too much. So as children, we do the intelligent thing. We disconnect, many of us disconnect from our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're speaking the truth now, when we're setting boundaries now, we touch that childhood terror in our bodies, and it feels like life or death. Right? It feels like life or death. So as we're setting boundaries, it feels like life or death as we're speaking our truth. And I'm overgeneralizing in that description, but the terror inside of our bodies is pretty extreme. It's pretty bad. And I don't know if you went through this in your healing journey or not, and I would love to touch that. But for me, I had to feel and integrate these childhood suppressed emotions and sensations.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's the key to healing these patterns.
I think it had to, I had to acknowledge and accept it, that I wasn't doing that right. That like, because of the childhood patterns, you've been doing this your whole life. There was an acceptance and sort of seeing it for the first time, because I think when you've got the goggles on, you just don't know. You're just going through the motions and living your life. So to me, recognizing it, realizing, hey, this could be me. What do I do? And learning boundaries, and teaching boundaries, and all of the other things that came along where you are getting back into that. I know a lot of people ask me, and you touched on this in the beginning, but or in the beginning of that segment, do they have to relive the childhood wounds to do this? Because I've had people who have come to me and go, oh, my last therapist wanted me to just tell her all about when I was 6, and I don't see how that's going to help me. Are they reliving the things, or just accepting them and
No,
understanding them?
it's a great question. And actually, I see it as one of the challenges with talk therapy
Mm,
is that it's almost, I believe there's almost like an energetic imprint of childhood that lives in our body. And while just talking about it, as far as validating our experience or getting insights from a therapist or a coach or a helper, is valuable, it is important, I don't feel it changes the energetic imprint in our body.
mm,
To me, it's only taking the actions
mm-hmm.
from a conscious place,
Right.
um, where we're setting a boundary and we're aware of it and we're feeling the sensations in our body. To me, that rewires us. But to me, just talking about it, while it may be illuminating,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change the patterns.
Right.
It has to be through some sort of actions
Mm-hmm.
for the patterns to change. We have to, it's that Susan Jeffers book, which I'm sure you're familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Feel the fear and do it anyway.
That book.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book. It's so important to this work.
Yeah.
We have to do the thing. We have to know that uncomfortable, maybe even terrifying situations sensations are going to come up in our body. We have to be like, yeah, I'm going to set this boundary, or I'm going to speak my truth, and I'm going to feel awkward, or I'm going to feel like crap in my body afterwards. And it's going to be okay, because that sensation is going to settle. And then I'm going to speak my truth a second time. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak my truth a third time. And then I'm going to speak my truth a fourth time. For my personal healing of these patterns, it was repetition
Mm-hmm.
and feeling the sensations, and then recognizing, oh, these are the sensations of my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I had a client I was talking to, and I sent her an emotional wheel after our call, because very often you're so disconnected that you don't have a word. Like, and to look at the anybody who wants to download one of these, put emotional wheel images into Google. You'll find a million of them, but it really explains the mad and this and this and this, all the different levels of all of the different emotions, happy, sad, angry, and it really helped her to go, oh, that's what I feel. I mean, it's sometimes so needed to just even have some kind of tool, because if you haven't been able to say them and speak them, you don't have a word for it.
Right.
So where are you on the spectrum of angry? Where are
And
you?
there's nothing wrong with us. It is simply relearning something that had to be shut down in childhood.
Right,
It was intelligent for us as little ones.
right, absolutely. Well, there's so much to be healed here. And do you have anything else on the healing part? Because I want to talk really briefly about the family constellation stuff that I met you through.
Yeah, sure. As far as the healing, I want to offer the best book that I found.
Yes, yes.
And while the author does not mention codependency in the book, I found it is the best book out there for healing these patterns, because he goes into the childhood wounds and he goes into practices to break free.
Mm-hmm.
But again, yeah, I would just to reemphasize, my basic premise with healing the patterns. It's knowing who we are, discovering who we are, being willing to speak our truth and act on our truth, And knowing that when we do that, these sensations that feel like life and death will come up, and that this is normal. And every time we speak our truth, and every time we practice being vulnerable, every time we set a boundary, it gets easier and easier and easier, because the sensations start to survive as we know that we are still loved, we're still cared about, we're not rejected. Now, there are people, of course, who will reject us when we speak our truth. And to me, to be honest, we have to be willing to face that, because eventually we have to move on from those people, because they will never be able to love us like we need. They'll never be able to accept us like we need. And we need to face that.
Mhm.
Challenges, we face what feels like the fear of life, death, rejection is like, it's almost like we're facing our mother abandoning us, or our father abandoning us. So I hope that's a good little
Yeah,
story
totally.
that's helpful.
Yeah. Do you want to share the book? Because
Uh,
mine's up there.
sure. So the book is Not Nice by Aziz Gazipura. Oh, you've got it.
Oh, I
Great.
got it from you.
Yes. And check the reviews on that book on Amazon if you're an Amazon shopper. They are phenomenal. The hundreds of reviews. It gets 4.9 stars,
Right.
and life-changing book.
Right.
For men, codependent men, I love the book, and I don't have the title in front of me. No More Mr. Nice Guy
Oh, yeah.
by a psychotherapist, Robert Glover in
Mhm.
Seattle, Washington. That book changed my life. So for men, I love that book.
Okay, awesome. That's really helpful. I think what we want to lead them to is how, because you run a codependency support group, not a support group, but it's
Healing Codependency group, yes.
healing. Yeah, so it's a program and everybody comes to it, and so a lot of people are in places that don't have that available. So leading them to the books, and I know I don't want to put Melody Beadle down, or anyone else that's written other books, but the difference between those books and the book that you just referred to, Not Nice,
Yeah.
is that this is giving us ways to heal
Yeah.
versus just explain it, which I think I've read so many of Melody's books and they're wonderful, but
They are great.
this one is a different level. If you really want to start healing, I want people to go get a book, and if you can't find some kind of support group, some kind of therapist that can guide you through the steps that Jack's talked about today, or have a plan to get you through this, to heal that, so that you don't make this mistake again. Guys, this is so serious. We have to heal it. This is our time to do the work. And when we say do the work, it's get to a therapist, it's get to someone that's going to be able to help you. And if you can't do that, at least go read the book. Empower yourself to really start to find answers instead of live in victim land. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but we were victims of abuse. And if we can look at inside ourselves to say, wow, I can fix something about me and never let this happen again, that's pretty cool. That's what
Yeah. I think we're as we heal ourselves, we're healing the world, and we must heal.
Yeah.
And there's an intrinsic shame with codependent patterns, and I gotta say, there's nothing wrong with us. This is an intelligent adaptation by a child to the childhood circumstance. It is an intelligent survival mechanism. And it works in childhood. It doesn't work in our adult relationships.
No.
That's all.
No.
Yeah. So,
All right.
Oh, and I also do have an online group starting, Healing Codependency.
Oh,
So that'll be starting in a couple of weeks.
awesome. Well, we're going to have your URL down below, because this video is going to live forever. So a couple of weeks, it could be a year from now before someone finds this, but they'll be able to get to your website. And hopefully this will just keep on going, and they'll be able to join in and do the work with you. Just like we're doing here on video. I've done a lot of things on video like this, and I coach my clients through this. So going into one of his codependency groups would be a great way for you to heal. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. All right. So let's quickly talk about Family Constellation. And I met you through Family Constellation, and one of the members of my support group said, "You got to check this thing out." And I went, and I was in awe. And I would love for you to just briefly tell us what it is, and maybe what types of things people come to you to heal the wounds with Family Constellation work.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Constellations founded in 2002. And it is definitely, in a way, the love of my life, right? That is my soul path, my soul mission is to bring that work to the world. And with constellation work, what we see is what we're doing is healing generational trauma, right? We're healing the lineage-based trauma that gets passed down generation to generation to generation, and maybe fell on like our shoulders, like, you know, you and I. Perhaps some people even notice they feel like a weight on their shoulders from their family. And I find that there's actual literal truth in that. And so what constellations work with are the energetic connections that we have to our family. Just like, you know, you, Tracy, have a bond with your mother, you know, living or deceased, and you have a bond with your father. And in a way, you have bonds with people in your family, you know, brothers, sisters, husbands, partners, children, right?
Right.
And when there is toxicity in those bonds, or when those bonds are really wound-based, it's almost like we get this download to us of wounded patterns coming through that bond. And so constellations are a beautiful modality that let us work at this energetic level to shift and clean up and heal these bonds to our family, so that we're not drinking like dad, so that we're not following in mom's footsteps around depression or smallness or unlovability, you know, so that we don't pass these patterns down to our children. So it's a beautiful way, and it's one of the most powerful modalities I've seen in the world, and I've seen a lot of beautiful work out there. And that's what we're doing. We're freeing us up from the wounds that live within our family system. And as to your, you know, I think your second question, or your part B, unlovability. Sometimes our feelings and sensations of unlivability are not even ours. They're our mother's or our grandmother's, and they've been passed down to us, or her pain has been passed down to us, or we can't get ahead in life. We keep trying to financially get ahead, and we always self-sabotage. And yet we have a generation or lineage of people that are in poverty or broke, or we have generations of illness. Like grandmother had this illness, and mom has this illness, and I have this illness. So what I'm looking for are the unresolved wounds within our lineage that have been passed down to us. And yeah, does that help? Is that a good kind of definition of the types of things that we're looking for?
Absolutely. It's a great explanation, and it is a very powerful healing tool. The guy in my support group, I'm like, thanks, Charlie, that was great, because I'm coming on Sunday to get my own constellation done, so I'm pretty excited to be going back, and I've seen it now twice, and I'm jumping in the pool, and we'll see what comes out of it. But the things that we do inherit, the things that I've witnessed in the groups I've been in with you, were so profound to see the things that come up that very often surprise a person. Like, I don't really know much about my family history beyond my initial parents. And so what's back there that I don't know about that I'm carrying? I want to get rid of that. It's time to get rid of the monkey on my back and break the patterns. And again, as you said, my goal is to break it so that my son doesn't repeat any of this kind of mistakes I've had in my life.
I like what you said there, and that may be one of the best ways of saying it. So what we're doing is breaking the generational patterns. You know, whether the pattern is a pattern of powerless women, whether it's sensations of unlovability, maybe there's rage in our lineage, maybe there's sexual abuse in our lineage. Like, how do we resolve all of that? And in a beautiful way, and maybe a little differently than psychotherapy in some ways, looking at it through a love-based lens, not to deny what happened, but to see it as, my belief is that deep down inside, we really do love our mothers and fathers, even if it gets blocked, even if it was a horrible experience. That beneath all of that, there's like an innocence and a love.
And what we should tell people is that this isn't normally a one-on-one thing. This is a group. This was, I don't know if we had 20 people there last week. There was a big room, and everybody in the room starts to participate in the changes inside of you. So it's so powerful, so profound. So please, everybody, if you're in the Boulder area, definitely look up Jack. But if you're not and you're in China, look it up. I know lots of people have come from China and said, oh, we have that there too, right? So wherever you are, look for it and see if you can dig into those skeletons, if you would, in your closet and try to heal that wound. Because the key to healing about all of this narcissistic abuse is to look inside. And that's looking inside and going, what's back there? Where's my grandfather? What did he pass down to me that I don't really want right now? Those are the healing and the wounds that are going to make you stronger so that you don't make another mistake and get into another abusive relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being with me here today, Jack. You have been very, very smart, and I think everyone's going to get so much out of this. So thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm amazed at all that you do for your tribe, that you're here to serve also. And I love not just talking to you, but actually learning from you, you know, and your business acumen and what you're bringing to the world in such a big and beautiful way. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to get to know you more and more.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, I hope you guys found that really helpful. I know I did. I'm going to put a link to Jack's website in the information below if you really want to check out his online codependency groups that he's going to be starting up. And I'd also going to put a link to that book. I really think that if you are in a place where you can't get support for this, get the book. Start learning and start to heal, because the only way out of this is when we dig ourselves out. And that means dig through our family history, dig through our own accountability, not victim blaming, but things that we need to learn about ourselves. So this is Tracy Malone. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. And please note that you can find me on my website, narcissistabusesupport.com, where we've got all kinds of helpful information, lots of healing tools and courses, as well as you can access my coaching services there. So I look forward to seeing you next time. And thanks everybody for joining me.